I'm Brownfield anchor reporter Meghan Grebner. With us today is Randy Myers, Agronomic Solutions Manager with Bayer. Hello.
Good morning.
We are going to talk a little bit about Delaro Complete fungicide. So as we get started, let's talk first about the product itself and the opportunities and what it offers growers.
Well, Delaro Complete is going to be, we've been working on this for a while, and it finally got the registration with the EPA. So it's available for growers starting this season in 2021. Now, I get a lot of questions about Delaro Complete because Delaro has only been on the market for a few years, and they say, well, why are you making the change? What's the big reason to, what holes are you trying to fill, and what's the big reason to come out with a new product? And I think it's important to understand that as we start with Delaro is an outstanding fungicide. It's gained market share and market acceptance quite broadly. And as we move to Delaro Complete, it's not that we're trying to fill holes or that there's some gaping need which makes us bring Delaro Complete to the market. It's because of the way the market has changed and evolved. Delaro is a product which contains two active ingredients, a strobilurin and triazole, and that's a standard approach right now as we're trying to combine multiple modes of action. That's important from a grower's perspective because if he's attacking the fungus from two different ways, it increases the consistency of performance. Each compound has conditions where it works better. And as we have a wide range of environmental conditions, then as we're sliding in and out of the optimal window for one product, it becomes more optimal for the other. So it increases the likelihood of having consistency. Now, bringing a third mode of action, a third chemistry into Delaro and making Delaro Complete. Now, with all the overlaps we've got, that makes for the grower a much more consistent product. It's not like we're trying to fill a particular hole, but it lends consistency over all these conditions. Another thing to consider is there is resistance out there now. If we look at soybeans, for instance, if a farmer has frog eye leaf spot in his field anywhere in the United States, essentially, then he probably has strobilurin resistant strains in that field. They found them as far north as South Dakota now. And if you go down to the mid-South, for years, they've been unable to use straight strobilurins because they had no efficacy. Well, if you look at Delaro, it's got two chemistries. But if one of them, the strobilurin, doesn't work from day one, it puts all the selection pressure for that pathogen on the other chemistry. So what we're trying to do is preserve the activity, the chemical classes we've got. So by adding another mode of action, it allows to fill that gap. It's critical that growers understand the components of the combination products to know how they overlap to make sure they have at least two effective chemistries against the important pathogens. And that's why we moved to Delaro Complete, so we can have more overlap of our portfolio to make sure the growers are getting what they're after. And that also lends consistency over a broader range of environmental conditions.
Randy, when we talk about having these types of chemistry and these types of products available, how important is it to make sure we're keeping our crop healthy the entire season long? And how does that benefit us in the long run?
Well, that's a good point. One of the reasons why a lot of guys use these fungicides is because it's been known that there's a plant health benefit from some of these chemistries. And strobilurin chemistries have carried that load for a long time. Now, as we're adding this third chemistry, SDHI chemistry, it also has a greening effect. See, both of these classes of molecules work in the electron transport chain, the mitochondria inside the plant, but they work at different sites. So they trigger different reactions. So having two chemistries which can help improve the overall health of a field, that brings advantages. Now, we're trying to reduce stresses so the plant can respond better under environmental stresses. Like if we have low moisture, for instance, it gets a little dry out there. We want the plant to stay productive. And having these molecules do that, make adjustments inside the plant so it responds to limitations in a better fashion. Even if you have low or no disease pressure, you'll still get yield advantages and other things beyond yield, such as if I've got stronger stalks, that increases harvest efficiency so I can get through the fields more efficiently in the fall. There's a lot of different additional benefits that you get from making the application of these fungicides beyond just controlling the diseases.
We're just ahead of the 2021 planting season, and I mean just ahead for many growers across in different parts of the Corn Belt. Talk to me a little bit about what we need to think about when it comes to disease pressure, and with commodity prices where they are this year at this point, do we need to think about maybe getting into fungicides and using a product like Delaro Complete? Is this a year to do it?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of points there you made. One is it's important to understand that in different fields, you'll have different degrees of response. You can anticipate that. If you're going, for instance, if I'm going corn on corn, a lot of these diseases like gray leaf spot, northern corn leaf blight, that growers have to fight routinely, they survive in the crop residue. So if I'm going into a cornfield that last year had those diseases, now crop residue is there, those diseases, the primary inoculum load is going to be pretty high. So understand the disease history in your fields, what your crop rotation is, because if I'm going corn after corn, there's less opportunity for all that residue to break down, which means it's going to be higher in inoculum load. But even rotating corn soybean, right now with the high amount of residue produced by some of our high yielding hybrids and with reduced tillage, there's still a lot of residue out there from a couple of years ago. So that can carry over. So understand where you've had disease in the past. That will facilitate the need for the disease and give you an indication as to what your disease pressure might be as environmental conditions change. So understand your history of your field and prioritize your fields. You can't, it's unlikely that a grower's going to spray all of his fields, but it's important that he look at all of his fields and determine which ones are the most at risk so we can prioritize which ones to get to first. Now you mentioned the thought about the comment about price and things. Commodity price is a little higher, but and people think, well, I don't know if I want to spend money on in this way. Well, I think what we need to understand is look at all the fixed costs that are already going to be sunk in here, where we've got seed, land rent, fuel costs, fertilizer. All these things are involved. That's a spent cost that's going to be out there. Adding the fungicide helps ensure that we get the yields off of that field that are going to cover all these other costs you've got. So you want to make sure that you're going to stay in the black. And the fungicides can help you do that because of the way they work. So especially with commodity prices getting up there a little higher, the break-even point for your return becomes more palatable. So I think this is a good situation where growers should be planning on using a fungicide coming in. And that's one point too. I would like growers to plan to use a fungicide instead of react to it. If you're reacting to fungicide, when I go out there and I've got disease in my field that's causing problems, now is not the time to make the application. You should have made it at the beginning of the infection, because when damage is done to the corn plant, that's the plant can't fix that. All the leaves the corn plant has at tassel, that's all the leaves it'll get for the entire season. That's it. Well, if those leaves become damaged, a plant can't generate new leaves to compensate for that. So that's why it's critical to protect that entire photosynthetic capturing mechanism of the plants and not let it run downhill. So don't try to save a field from an infection, try to prevent the infection.
Randy, it's always great to see you. Any final thoughts before I let you go today?
No, I probably gave you a little more than you wanted to, but it's an exciting topic. It's an exciting time. So I tend to talk a lot about these things a lot.
Well, it's definitely an exciting product. If folks want to learn more, find out more information about Delaro Complete, Randy, where's the best way for them to go?
Well, because it's available now in the market, we've got EPA registration for Delaro Complete, and we have registrations in most states. So, and we'll have all the important states then before the season gets here. So talk to your retailer, because they've been given a lot of information, and the local sales reps are very well informed in what we're trying to do. So they're two great resources.
Randy, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure, Megan.
I'm Meghan Grebner for Brownfield.